Good morning, everybody. If everybody would please take their seats, it's 10 o'clock. Thanks, Karen. Okay. Good. Okay. Being 10 o'clock, I will now open the, all right, I believe this is a public hearing, work session. Okay. The work session for House Bill 1039 relative to alternative sentencing for primary caregivers. So in the past, we have had smaller subcommittees for interim study bills, and those smaller subcommittees, of course, discuss it, make their recommendations, and come back and we vote on it as an entire committee. And after discussing with Chairman Roy, he decided that, he feels that we've pretty much already had the discussions and to just kind of come back, go over them, rather quickly as a committee. And what I'm going to do is open each one. We'll talk about it. I'll close it. We'll go to the next one, and then we can break out. We can go to our respective caucuses, and we'll come back and make the recommendations from there. So with that being said, House Bill 1039 relative to alternative sentences for caregivers. I am opening it up for any discussion. Representative Murray, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Vice Chair Rhodes. I was just going to share that I am in conversation with the Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence over this topic right now, because they named some concerns if we were to implement this bill with our current system as it is. So I want to work with them to address those concerns before we introduce legislation like this again. So I would say we'd not recommend it moving forward.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, Representative Reed?
Thank you, Chairman. Alessandra, what were your concerns regarding?
Bring your mic down.
What were your concerns regarding this bill that you feel needs to be worked on?
From my understanding, the coalition doesn't think that we have the support systems in place to make alternative sentencing a viable option at this point, and that we need to build out our systems of support before we can implement something that's going to bring more people into the community without the support systems necessary, to make that safe for everybody.
Representative Newman?
Yeah, I just wonder what coalition did you say it was that you dealt with?
Sorry, Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Well, seeing none, I will close the work session for House Bill 1039, and I will open the work session for House Bill 1428 relative to inmate illness or emergency. And again, I will open it up to any discussion. Anybody have any thoughts? Okay. Does anybody? Yeah, Representative Saitek?
This is actually back before, but I just wonder about whether we want to recommend this legislation or the topic for further legislation. What exactly is our charge?
So
if it's specifically about this legislation, sure, but that doesn't mean the topic isn't worth pursuing, is I guess my point.
So if Representative Saitek, obviously if, our job, if I'm answering your question specifically, is to basically, because we interim studied the bill, is does the committee as a whole feel that this particular bill is worthy of legislation? In that event, then somebody would be charged with writing the legislation and reintroducing it whenever we all come back in January, those that are fortunate enough to come back, or unfortunate enough, I'm not really sure. But basically, really today, what we have to find out is, do we think that this should be recommended or not recommended? And that's it. We don't do anything else with it. And if the person does want it to be, come back, then they're going to be the ones charged with doing that.
Close enough.
Okay. So does anybody even recall what this was, Representative Selig?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My recollection is that this was a bill that we had a lot of opposition to and a lot of discussion around how safely to transport prisoners to medical facilities without putting further strains on departments, sheriff's departments, among other things. I couldn't find my notes when I was digging through my piles at home, but I just had this, my recollection is that the Sheriff's Association was not necessarily in favor of this one because there were so many complexities to trying to make it work, but I may be wrong.
Representative Stone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my understanding that this bill was brought to basically give the authority of transporting prisoners that are already incarcerated to medical appointments by correctional staff, which, if the committee is not aware, most of the county correctional facilities have transport teams that are armed and trained to do such. I think the sheriff's department was looking at it as it was a drain on some of their smaller departments size-wise, and that the correctional staff might be better attuned to doing it than the sheriffs in various counties. But I could be wrong. If somebody has a better recollection, I think that was the purpose of this bill.
If I see you, give me 1 second. So this is starting to come back to me a little bit as well. Wasn't there conversation about some of the smaller towns that may only have, honestly, 1 or 2 police officers, and
This is when individuals incarcerated and they have a
Okay.
medical issue, that the correctional staff have the capability currently, I believe all 10, but if someone has more information, I know locally Sullivan County has a transport team that's armed to do their armed transports for prisoners. And they have a dispute over, should the sheriffs be responsible for doing all the transports, or should it be the correctional staff who currently do it with federal detainees when they do have federal detainees, because the sheriff's departments generally will not transport federal detainees that are on a per diem rate at a county facility.
I see that now. Thank you for the clarification. Representative Murray?
I pulled up the notes we have from the hearing, and this was actually only a minute or 2 long hearing where the prime sponsor came out and asked that we hold it for interim study because the bill needed more work. So it sounds like, yeah, it's literally 1 sentence.
That's why having the clerk is good. So it was the prime sponsor that asked the Sterntum study it because he didn't like the way it was written, basically. Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, with that, we will close the work session for House Bill 1428. Okay, so we will open the work session for House Bill 1462, relative to requirements reporting hate crimes. And Representative Murray, you'd like to talk?
Yeah, so originally the chairman and I held this in case we needed to use it, but Senator Chanley passed a similar bill. Essentially, when I drafted this one, the AG didn't have the full information that we then got later, amended Senator Chanley's bill and passed the legislation that way. So this bill isn't necessary at this point.
So when we're ready to go, you're basically recommending not, you're just recommending no future legislation? Okay. Okay. Let me put my little note. Anybody else be good? All right, well, we will close the work session for 1462. Okay, we will open the work session for House Bill 1500, relative to prohibiting the unlawful distribution of misleading synthetic media. And I will open it up. Any discussions? Representative Murray, what do your notes say?
Madam Chair, I can. Oh, I was just trying to raise my hand. I was the co-sponsor of this legislation, and we moved this interim study because the chair and many legislators felt that a commission around AI is how the legislature should move forward. And whomever is elected speaker next year, I would hope moves forward with that, and a similar style commission, because the issue is important, but how to get it done is where the opposition comes in from. There was opposition from the media. I forget exactly what their association, the Broadcasters Association, and there's concerns around free speech and criminalizing satire, and I think those are genuine concerns. So I think recommending no further legislation would be appropriate, and pushing whoever gets elected speaker to appoint a commission along those lines, I think would be better than trying to force through legislation.
Thank you, Representative Wheeler. I will add to that I do remember there was 3 or 4, if not more, pieces of legislation that were in various committees, not just ours. I think we had 2. Additionally, Judiciary also had a couple, and I feel like somebody else had one as well. I'm not really sure. God bless you, whoever did that. And I'm recalling now that there was discussion. I was there. There was a couple other representatives there. There was a representative from election law. I think it's Representative Brennan, but I don't want to say that if it wasn't true, but I'm pretty sure it was her. Representative Lynn was there, myself, and a couple of others. The speaker was also there. And we did discuss this. And the question was about, the difference between, like you're saying, satire or almost an actual threat. And I do believe that was the thought process, was to come back with something that was going to address all of it, not just kind of, patch a couple of leaks. That kind of was happening with the bill. So this was kind of similar to that. And I do believe we did pass something on the House floor about this already, though. So we probably don't need to keep on going with it. I think you're right, Representative Wheeler. Hold on one second, Representative Newman. Did you have something you wanted to say, or you just had your notes? Okay, Representative Newman.
Yeah, I just have a question about the process. So this appears to be a bill that we probably wouldn't recommend for this bill to go forward, but the subject matter appears to be worthy of a bill. So if we voted yes, we would be voting. Can we vote yes that it's worthy of a bill, and then somebody would just do a bill, or would we have to do a bill?
So what we do today is we make a recommendation basically on the bill that we have in front of us. So even if we say that we don't particularly think that it should be recommended, that doesn't mean that anybody, regardless if they're in this committee or another committee, can't say, I actually think that there should be some legislation and write that. So I don't think it's as simple as yes or no. Yes, it is this particular bill, but it also is a subject matter, right? But as we all know, you can write the bill for anything that you feel needs to be addressed. And if it's this subject matter, you're welcome to do that. But today we're voting on this bill, whether or not we think should be recommended to
It's
continue.
yes or no, but yes or no on this bill. Thank you.
Well, it's the 3rd time it got asked. So apparently there might be more than just yes or no. Representative Saitek, did you have a question? No. Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, we will close the work session for House Bill 1500. And we will open the work study, the work committee for, oh wait, hold on. I have my bills are not in order. Yeah, wait a second. I got to get to it. I have to get to it. All right. So House Bill 1566, relative to the review of police investigations. Okay. So this was the bill I do remember specifically. I'm sure that we all do. Unfortunately, there was some deaths involved, and the family members were very, very passionate that things were not done correctly. And, we heard from law enforcement, we heard from people in that community. I don't know at the end of the day that there's going to be any answer that is going to be sufficient for a family member grieving a child. I just don't. I know I recommended that the bill be ITL because we do have, there is a lot of processes that are in place. This particular situation did go through all of those channels. And unfortunately, the answer was just not ever going to be what that family needed. I actually recommended that we interim studied it. I'm sorry, that we ITO'd it. And then it, basically we just agreed to interim study it that day. My recommendation would be that we do not recommend it for future legislation. But of course, we're not making those this moment. But Representative Wheeler. I'll trade you this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add, having worked with the family in helping them speak with the executive branch and meeting with the Attorney General's office and going through this legislation with the Governor's office and the Attorney General's office, I do believe that this is an issue in legislation worth moving forward on. I think that the technical opposition that was offered for this legislation, with all due respect to those who did, I think was offered more because of how emotional the situation, that particular situation was. But the family made it clear that this wasn't about their situation. This was about making sure that there was accountability. And I'll be voting against a motion to not recommend any further action on this legislation because of that. And I think that accountability is important. And having worked with the Governor's office and the AG on this, I would think that this legislation is fine to move forward.
Representative Mannion.
Thank you. It's a difficult subject, taking the emotion out of it. This is not about accountability. It was made clear that they didn't think the Gary Police Department did anything that resulted in misconduct. They just didn't like the results of the accident reconstruction report. It was reviewed by the county attorney, and the Manchester Police Department also did their own independent reconstruction of it with the same findings. So this is more about the findings that they weren't satisfied with. If there's any misconduct done in a police department, the state police or the attorney general are going to investigate that. A law is not needed to do that. This was simply about you didn't like the findings or you didn't agree with them, so you want someone else to take a look at them. In this case here, they want the state police to look at it. What if the state police came back with the same findings? I mean, we just end it there. So this isn't really, if I remember correctly, not an accountability bill, but more about we didn't like what the findings were. So.
Representative Knoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the conversation that we're having is talking about a specific issue, but the point is to implement a system that enables people to have an independent review. We talk about how the independent review or a quasi-independent review was done, and that was a process that put the family in this specific situation through the process of having to fight for that. Whereas what we're saying is that should be automatic. That should be something that, if requested, should be done. So we're saying it was done, and they weren't happy with the results. Well, if they weren't happy with the results, that's not what we're legislating here. We're legislating the capacity for someone to be able to have an independent review without having to fight for it. So I would vote in favor of this bill.
Representative Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I wanted to note that when Manchester Chief of Police Alan Aldenberg testified, he talked about how there is already a process for if a victim feels the local police department did not do an adequate investigation, that they can go to the Public Integrity Unit at the AG or go through the county attorney, as Representative Mannion mentioned. And there already are processes in place to have, a further look into an issue like this. I guess Representative Wheeler wanted to hear more about these conversations that you've had with the AG and Governor's office that make you feel like there is more room to push here.
Hold on one second, Representative Wheeler. Representative Roy had a comment, and I had to call on Representative Murray first.
That's okay. You can go ahead and answer her.
Okay.
That would keep continuity.
Representative Wheeler.
So Marianne Scotus, the woman who came to testify, who had the specific issue that the bill was proposed around, wanted to meet with the Governor's office, and I relayed that and helped her meet with the governor's office. Those conversations were around this bill and what they felt could potentially be wrong with the bill, what the systems were implemented. The AG wanted to know about this situation itself, what particularly might have gone wrong there. I don't know where those conversations went beyond me sitting down in the executive council chamber with the representative from the AG's office and Harold Parker from the governor's office, but I can say that both the governor's office and the attorney general's office was very, at least in that meeting, open to hearing what this legislation was about, open to what their situation was about. And I think that the family itself was a little upset just by being taken on a bit of a rigmarole by the state government. And I think that happens to plenty of people, not just this one particular family. I think people in the state government are not as open to hearing stories from constituents as some of us representatives are. And as a result, they can be flippant, not listening in conversations, and that can create friction that leads to people feeling like their situation wasn't properly addressed. And I think that's what happened here. As far as I understand, the governor's office said to me on the House floor, and we almost had change on, they said to me that there was they didn't see any issues with the text in the legislation, is what Harold Parker had told me. Whether that's the governor's official position or not, Harold Parker told me that in the hallway, and I'm not saying it is, with all due respect to Governor Sununu. My point, and I think Representative Newell illustrated this properly, this isn't about at all, actually, their situation. I think Marianne Scotus would say that too. This is about making sure that there's in law codified a system of accountability, which, as I mentioned in past testimony on this legislation, does, as you mentioned, exist in police departments across this state already. And I think this legislation codifies what already exists. And if, the difference of opinion comes, some people think it's already working and it already exists. Some people think we should make sure it's codified so that it works.
Representative Roy.
Thank you. Couple things. So first off, I'm the co-sponsor of this bill, and the prime sponsor came to me and relayed the situation we're just talking about. And hearing that, I said, wow, that does sound pretty messed up. That sounds like this sounds like a decent idea. So after agreeing to co-sponsor, I started doing research and seeing, okay, what's the current situation? If we have a bill, we may need to modify it. And it's pretty much as clear as mud. There are systems in place, but no one really kind of knows what they are except for the people who are dealing with them at the moment. So first of all, like, I'm right now involved in 2 separate incidents similar to that one with constituents where they feel like they really didn't quite get a fair shake, be it because someone might be perceived to be in a position of power or have money, and all of a sudden inexplicable things are happening that you would think common sense says they may. But then again, on the other side, you talk to a county attorney, says, no, we looked at it. So the issue is that the person who's upset isn't able to know who to talk to find out what was actually done and what was looked at. So as far as this, just to be clear, our job here is to recommend to the legislature as a whole, this is a good idea or a bad idea. Whether someone picks it up and runs with it is really not us. But I would recommend to anyone who thinks that this is a good idea to start with a study committee, because this is a very complex issue. There's no way you can just write a bill and say, for example, if people feel like, well, I should have someone to go to if I don't like the outcome of the investigation. Do you realize the amount of work that would generate for the state police? I mean, it would be hundreds and hundreds of cases a year, would double their work. So there would need to be criteria that would make that eligible for that type of thing. So there's a lot of little moving pieces that would have to be looked at. And I would encourage whoever it is to get the county attorneys, to get the chiefs of police, and to get victim witness advocates, get everybody together so that they aren't talking past each other and even they understand what the current lay of the land is. So I would definitely recommend looking at it if someone wants to, first as a study, and I mean a real study, because it's got so much complexity to it that a simple piece of legislation written without that, I feel like would either be ineffective or worse. It could lead to worse outcomes. So that's my take on the whole subject. Thanks.
Representative Selig.
Thank you so much. And to echo part of what Representative Roy said, is the idea of the lack of understanding of the process. My recollection of part of the discussion was there was so much confusion on the part of the family about where to turn to next. And as I tried to understand the process and spoke to different people, it didn't seem like there was clarity. So I would encourage, if anyone did pursue this further, that part of it should really be about how to communicate effective ways of tracking the information, like having maybe that's where the codification needs to come in, is what are the steps that people can take? How do we understand who our person is that we reach out to? I think that having public comprehension of how the process works is crucial. Just as there was another law we had about, stopping people taking breathalyzers, and much of it was just people don't understand the current law because they don't remember from when they were 16 years old. So that was a different law, but there was confusion around that one for similar reasons.
It's kind of scary. A 16-year-old would have to take a breathalyzer. Representative Newman.
As I read this law, I came across my pet peeve for legislative language. And I agree that this is a good idea and needs to be studied. And I would have the people that look at the language in the bill look at one word, and that word is shall. Shall or may. When you take may, and I don't know what the current law says, but it probably says may request, and this says shall request. And that almost makes it a requirement. So you need to figure out which one of them do you really want. And my thought process is it's probably still to be may, and think about what happens with the bill and all the recommendations that said we can approve it. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Representative Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make clear that this doesn't codify an existing process. It institutes a new process. Like Representative Roy said, it would add a new greater burden on the state police, which is not what the process is right now. So this isn't about codifying something that's already in place. It institutes a whole different process. I agree this issue deserves more study, and I think there are definitely things we can do to improve communication between law enforcement and victims, and make sure that everybody has a path to, at least understanding the result that they got. But I definitely do not think this legislation in its current form is that.
Anybody else? We all good? All right. I will close the work session for House Bill 1566 and change seats.
I hereby open the work session on Senate Bill 244 relative to bail for a defendant. Oh, did I skip one? 248 relative to bail for a defendant. I'll just kick it off by saying that I'm really tired of that word, the B word, bail. I think we've done everything we can, and we need to sit back and let's see how this works. What we've just put in place was extremely complex. I think it was extremely beneficial for the citizens in New Hampshire, and any further tampering with that at this current point before it takes effect in full and we see how it works would be very dangerous. But open for comments.
I say let's kill it.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. With no further comments, I think that we'll go ahead and close that work session, and it's ripe for voting on this afternoon. With that, I open the work session on Senate Bill 321 relative to the release of defendant pending the trial. And I wish to just reiterate what I just said. Any further comments, discussion? Seeing none, I hereby close that work session. I open the work session on Senate Bill 415 relative to the penalty for certain fentanyl-related offenses. This one's a little different. Now, this is, I believe, if I recall, this was the one that would make it a felony for, is this the one for possession or importing? Does anyone have that?
You have it.
Possession. So this one, surely we have some opinions on. I do believe, and this is my personal opinion from observations I've seen over the last 6 years, that we have tried, and it's worked to a certain extent, various forms of mitigation, of harm mitigation. We've tried the testing part. I believe our overdoses are way down because we've got the, I almost said the antidote, but the Narcan out into the public at a much greater rate. Our police officers all have it, our EMTs all have it, and I believe citizens are actually can get it now and carry it. So that's a big plus. We do not want to criminalize in any way addiction. Addiction is a disease, just like alcoholism or various mental illnesses. But we do have to find a way to interdict the flow of drugs into the state and the people that are peddling this and making profit off of people suffering. Because at the end of the day, all the things I just listed in the mitigation or the harm reduction and mitigation are all treating symptoms. It's like, taking Advil for a headache, but not understanding it's because you have narrow arteries, you can have a stroke. I think we need to stiffen the penalties to show the public how serious we take this fentanyl problem. It's being manufactured outside the country. It's almost impossible to stop, be it through a border or FedEx or UPS. It's just, there's so much of it. We can't keep up. So at the same time as we hope our federal partners will do their job and interdict this stuff coming in, it's getting here, we need to send a message that we are not going to tolerate the poisoning of our children in this state. And I think that it is worthy of legislation to make that message clear, especially in light of the fact that many of us want to legalize marijuana. We have to differentiate those two things. We're not saying we approve drugs now. We're saying this is a substance similar to alcohol that can be used in a certain way. This is always poison, always. So I feel like that differentiation needs to be clear, sharp, and to the point. With that, I'll open for conversation. Representative Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think especially, given what we had heard from people who came in and testified who work in the recovery community and things like that, I agree that there should be a distinction, but I think that distinction is very difficult to make for two reasons. Number one, because fentanyl is pervasive. It is in everything. And we have implemented some testing and analyzing strips. That's one thing. But it requires people to have knowledge of how much is in there. The other thing that people spoke about was the idea that people's tolerance changes. And so when we talk about a definitive amount, that varies per person. So individual people who are not trafficking, individuals who as you said, struggle with substance use disorder, something that we, acknowledge is akin to mental health and things like that has physical ramifications on the body that changes your physiology. What happens is when people's tolerance goes up because of those physiological changes, that this number that we are putting on it to define what is the difference between someone who is a user and someone who is trafficking, that number becomes very, very fuzzy. And then what we end up doing is, because we have set this number, we have ensnared people who just have an issue that is further progressed than maybe others, and their tolerance is up.
Thank you. Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to share that no one came and testified in support of this bill when we had the public hearing. And additionally, the way this is written, it includes the dilutants for fentanyl in this measurement, which, if cannabis can be laced with fentanyl. So, for example, it would be really easy for someone to get charged with this mandatory minimum who had cannabis maybe knowingly or unknowingly that was laced with fentanyl, because it would be a lot easier to get to 5 grams of cannabis that's laced with fentanyl than just 5 grams of fentanyl. It's not about just purely the fentanyl. It includes the dilutants.
I would just clarify that a diluent is the definition is something that dilutes it, makes it weaker. You can't put marijuana into fentanyl to dilute it. You would add fentanyl to marijuana, so I don't think that would count. I think diluent would mean with cocaine, it would be like, or it could be cocaine that's the diluent. It could be with like you would use baking soda to dilute cocaine. I think that's what that means. But your point is taken. Representative Newman.
I want to agree with Representative Newell. We do need to send a message. Mandatory minimums are not the way to send the message.
Thank you. Representative Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have heard a lot of mention about dealers don't know what is in it or what they're necessarily giving somebody, but they clearly know that they're giving somebody drugs and a deadly substance, right? And somehow we as a society have sent a message that depending on a person's status is whether or not we're going to charge the person that delivered the deadly substance with a crime. So I will refer everybody to a Hollywood actor that died in a hot tub, right? He clearly had a disease. They charged the dealer and he was arrested, right? So the message was, well, he's more important than people in Manchester, people in New Hampshire, people in Cheshire County. He's not any more important. He made more money probably than all of us, but he wasn't more important. The same thing happened with the very popular singer that died, right? They charged the people that gave the deadly substances. So we're not talking about charging the people that are taking the deadly substance. That's the issue of recovery. We are talking about the people that are knowingly and willingly giving these deadly substances to our children, to our parents, to our grandparents, and people are dying. This isn't making an excuse for the person that's doing it. It's holding those accountable that are willing to kill our community members.
Thank you. I just want to add a couple of things based on what I've heard. We often put a lot of emphasis on who came and testified and who showed up and who didn't, and that is worthy of note among many factors. But keep in mind that I, as a advocate for this, 3,400 people showed up in the person of me, and 3,400 showed up in the person of Representative Wheeler, maybe against it. So we have to remember, even if no one shows up to testify against the bill, in this room, we've got, 30, 40,000 New Hampshire citizens speaking. So it's important to not downplay our own role in this. Second of all, with regard to what Representative Newell said about the amount, that is definitely something that a new piece of legislation would have to look at. 5 grams of fentanyl would kill everybody probably within 5 square blocks of here, if not more. So is that enough to say that you're a dealer because you have that much? Or if you are using to a certain amount, that might only be 2 days worth for you. So I think some scientific answers have to be put in place before we arrive at a number. I'm not sure that was done. I think a lot of times we just pick numbers based on, how much will this kill? How many people will this kill? The question is because of tolerance, how much can a single person take before you could say that's no way just for you? So I advocate for this legislation, but I advocate for science to back it. Yes, Representative.
Thank you so much. I have one echo of Representative Newman and one question. One is just that historically we've seen that mandatory minimum sentences ultimately cause more problems than they solve. And I would invite whoever chooses to move forward with this legislation or similar to look at alternative ways that allow judges who we appoint for the purpose of having their discretion use it in an appropriate and suitable way, and just be able to consider whatever factors are necessary in making sentencing. That doesn't mean I don't support criminalizing the behavior or increasing penalties, but I just mean, I think we need to keep in mind mandatory minimums don't generally help problems. And the other is I would invite anyone who's reviewing this as a woman of a certain age and having had a conversation with a gastroenterologist recently where they talked about one of the methods of making sure I wasn't awake during a certain procedure would be incorporating fentanyl into an anesthetic program so that the medical uses of certain drugs that we would not want on the street are not accidentally being criminalized.
Yeah, well, I don't believe that people with a prescription for fentanyl would be caught up in that. I would say that fentanyl is a common drug in a hospital. As a matter of fact, when I used to work as an investigator for the Board of Medicine down south, one of the first cases I caught was a ER doc who was diverting fentanyl out of a crash cart because when you intubate somebody, fentanyl's the first thing you do. And the horrific result of that is people were being intubated without it, which can cause enormous stress. So fentanyl does have perfectly great uses. And I don't think that legislation like that should catch that up in there. One more thing on the minimum mandatories. I think we're going to agree to disagree on that. I think that statistics, depending on who you ask or which study you look at, show effects both ways. But I would rely on the gentleman who came here who had already served time as a drug dealer. And he said, you want to stop. The reason we used to come up here and deal in New Hampshire is because we knew you had minimum mandatories. When those went away, the drugs came with them. So maybe anecdotal, but it's certainly worthy of consideration. Any other hands on this one? Seeing none, I'll close the work session. And with that, I will open the work session on Senate Bill 425 relative to bail commission fees. I think we've dealt with that. We gave them a nice little bump. Anyone want to talk about it? Seeing none, I close the work session. Next, I open a work session on Senate Bill 464, prohibiting the non-consensual dissemination of a sexual synthetic image. And I open that up for discussion. I'm not sure if it seems like we had a lot of bills regarding this last year. I'm not sure if anything actually made it through or not. If it didn't, I would say that we probably should look at it. If it did, we should wait and see what comes of that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
There was a bill that was passed and signed. It was a House bill, not a Senate bill, and it was pretty much the exact same bill.
If I recall, that was the one that Representative Muse was talking about or sponsored.
Yeah, Representative Hughes, myself, and a couple other people
Okay.
I don't know on here, but yeah.
Okay, so if we got one passed,
done.
we should wait and see how that works. Any comments, questions, thoughts? Seeing none, I will close the work session. With that, I open the work session on Senate Bill 578 relative to criminal pretrial services and monitoring. This is, again, a bail kind of issue. I think we dealt with this already. Does anyone want to talk about this bill? Representative Wheeler.
I would just really quickly mention that I do think criminal pretrial services and monitoring are an important step forward in the long-term thinking for the state to be moving forward. I mean, the budget next year is going to be a little tough, but in the longer term, thinking about bienniums moving forward, once we have a more stable economy and things like that, I think we do need to start looking into, similar to how we did here last year, updating the criminal justice system in ways. And I think the work that's being done in Stratford County and the other counties across the state around pretrial services and monitoring show that that might be one of those ways too.
I actually agree. I believe that the bill package that we sent forward and was signed into law tasked the Commission for Criminal Justice to actually look at pretrial services and see if there was a statewide model that they could use, maybe at Stratford or someone else, and come up with funding methods to help reimburse counties who chose to adopt it. So I think I agree, we need to head down that path and at least uniform so that your level of services that you get don't depend on what zip code you get arrested in. So Representative Newell.
Just a point, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarification, because I think that with this bill, it doesn't aim to implement pretrial monitoring and things like that. What it does is it says that if you cannot pay for it, it should be paid for. If you are indigent, then it should be that you should not be responsible for the cost of it, right? If you can't pay for it. So that's the question that this bill is asking. It's not whether we should implement it. It's how it is funded and whether people who cannot afford it can still have it without can still avail themselves of that option, and not be stuck with a giant bill.
I think, well, that opens a whole new can of worms in as much as any pretrial services that are offered on a county by county basis, and the county governments fund it. So I don't think we would be able to tell the counties you can't charge people for it. That's an unfunded mandate. So we would have to come up with and fund every single piece of it. And since it's not uniform, one county may be giving amazing stuff that's very expensive, and another county may not have much. So I think the answer to the question you just raised has to be part of a uniform pretrial services across the state. I would think, but thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Representative Salig.
Thank you. I don't actually have anything on this bill, but once you close the hearing, if I might be allowed to make a very brief announcement to the committee, that would be great.
Sure. Seeing nothing further, I hereby close the work session on 578. We will convene again at 1 p.m. to vote on these. It shouldn't take more than 10 or 15 minutes. Well, I would first of all disagree with the stupid. I didn't know how long these would take, so I had to plan. I had to give it time. I don't know if I can. We can't. No, it's noticed in the calendar, and that's when it has to be 1 o'clock. So yeah, that gives us a couple hours. If you can't go, if you can't stay, as long as we have a quorum, just make sure you let me or Linda know. As long as we have a quorum. Okay. Well, I am sorry that you are unhappy. Any further comments? None. Representative Saylor, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I sent an email out to the committee, which hopefully everyone received, about an event that I've brought through my other hat to UNH later this fall. It'll be October 23rd. It's a presentation called Aftermath, which specifically talks about PTS and first responders. So there's a scripted play reading followed by a facilitated discussion. And I just think it's a really valuable program. I wanted to make everyone aware of it. It is free to attend. We do have a sign up just to make sure we don't overfill the room. And I'm happy to share information with anyone, but I just wanted to make sure you all saw it because I think it's something worthy of all of our attention.
Thank you for sharing that with us and bringing that to our attention. And if you don't recall it, check your emails. It's in there. Representative Pratt.
Just what was the location of that?
It will be at the University of New Hampshire in Durham.
Okay, thank you.
I think the email had the exact address and you could link it and it would just take you to a web page. So that would probably be helpful. With that, I will see you all at 1 p.m. Okay, everyone. We're just waiting on one person who had to use the ladies' room. Based on the number counts today, I believe that one side is going to prevail. So I'm going to recognize that side to make all the motions. That way we're not doing a double vote count. We're out of here at 1:15. If anybody wants to talk, we've already discussed these bills today. You have a right to discuss them, but I'm leaving and you can continue without me. So let's get this quick done, voted.
Okay.
Hold on. So, Representative Rhodes, let's grab some. I'll make the motion on all the bail ones and I'll write the report on those because we already agreed that we're going to dispose of those. But everything else, you guys can make a motion. Yes. I would say I would make a motion that we vote this for future, that we make a motion to recommend this for future legislation or not. Yeah. I think we'll figure out what you mean. All right. With that, I open the executive session on House Bill 1039. And who would like to make the motion? Representative Bolden.
Recommend HB 1039 for future legislation.
Yes. Very good. Thank you. I believe we discussed this earlier. Anyone have anything new, Dan? Okay. Seconded. Yeah. We got that. Based on that, I would ask the clerk to call the roll. The motion on the floor is recommend for future legislation.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
No.
Representative Pratt,
No.
Representative Sytek, Representative Jandrin,
No.
Representative Mannion,
No.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Stone,
Absolutely not.
Representative Gathright, Representative Bolden,
Absolutely, yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler,
Yay.
Chairman Roy.
Chair votes no. Motion carries 9-8. Is that correct? Uh-oh.
Representative Bale.
Yes.
Motion extra carries
Okay.
now. 9-8. Representative Bolden, please have that report or sentence or whatever you want to give me by the end of the week, please. With that, I close the executive session on HB 1039. I open the executive session on HB 1428. Would anyone like to make a motion? Representative Stone.
Make a motion not to recommend for future legislation 1428.
Seconded by Representative Rhodes. Anyone need to add anything to what was discussed earlier? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll. What was your motion?
What?
Yes or no?
Not recommend.
Yes to say no.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Sytek, Representative Jandrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Harry Gathright,
No.
Representative Bolden, Representative.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, that was me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Representative Vale,
No.
Representative Murphy,
No.
Representative Newman.
No.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yeah. I know. We're voting yes to say no, right?
yes. Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler, Chairman Roy.
I don't know. Yes, I think. Yeah. Something.
13
I vote
to
something.
4.
13-4. The motion carries to not recommend future legislation. Representative Stone, if you could have me a blurb by the end of the week. With that, I close the executive session on House Bill 1428. I open the executive session on House Bill 1462 relative to the requirements for reporting hate crimes. Anyone like to make a motion? Representative Murray.
I recommend or vote to not, I motion to not recommend this for future legislation.
Second. Anyone? Seconded by Representative Salig. She had her hand up first. Okay, anyone need to say anything about this? Do you want to say anything that we haven't already said? Seeing not, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll. The motion on the floor is not recommended for future legislation. Oh, excuse me, Representative Newman. To say no. Yes. It's like going left to go right.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative
yeah.
Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Sitek, Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Stone, Representative Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Vale,
Yes.
Representative Murphy, Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selling,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler,
Yay.
Chairman Roy,
Chair votes yes.
17-0.
Unanimous vote, motion carries of a recommendation of not recommended for future legislation. With that, I close the executive session on House Bill 1462. I open the executive session on House Bill 1500 relative to the prohibiting of unlawful distribution of misleading synthetic media. Anyone for a motion? Representative Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Make a motion of not to recommend House Bill 1500.
I'll second.
Second to Representative Mannion. Anyone need to talk about that? We already discussed it. That's the one that we just passed and saw it was already signed into law. No discussion. Please call the roll. Motion is not to recommend for future legislation.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Prue, or sorry, Sitek, Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright,
No.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
No, it's not.
Representative Vale,
No.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler,
Yay.
Chairman Roy,
Chair votes yes.
15-2.
By 15-2, the motion carries. It is not recommended for future legislation. Representative Rhodes, if you could, by the end of the week with a blurb. With that, I close the executive session on House Bill 1500. I open the executive session on House Bill 1566 relative to the review of police investigations. And I recognize Representative Mannion for a motion. Oh, no, excuse me, Representative Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we recommend HB 1566 for further legislation.
Seconded. Representative Salig. I believe we discussed this one pretty deeply as well. Anyone need to add anything? See not, ask the clerk to call the roll. The motion is to recommend for future legislation.
That's a yes.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
No.
Representative Pratt,
No.
Representative Sitek, Representative Janvrin,
No.
Representative Mannion,
No.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Stone,
No.
Representative Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
I feel like I just want to recuse for the rest of these. This is so confusing.
No.
Abstain? No, whatever Linda said. Thank you.
Yes.
Representative Vale,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler,
Yay.
Chairman Roy,
The chairman votes no with reservations.
9-8.
9-8, the motion carries. It is recommended for future legislation. Representative Wheeler, if you could have me a blurb by the end of the week, please.
I can do that.
With that, I close the executive session on House Bill 1566. I open the executive session on Senate Bill 248 FN relative to bail for a defendant. I make a motion that this not be recommended for future legislation. Seconded by Representative Stone. As I said, we've already done enough bail stuff. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Sitek, Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed?
Yes.
Representative Stone?
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright? Yes. Representative Bolden?
Yes.
Representative Vale?
Yes.
Representative Murphy? Yes. Representative Newman?
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell?
Yes.
Representative Selig?
Yes.
Representative Wheeler?
Yay.
Chairman Roy?
Chair votes yes.
17-0.
17-0, the motion carries. It is not recommended for future legislation. With that, I close the executive session on Senate Bill 248. I open the executive session on Senate Bill 321, and I make a motion that it is not to be recommended for future legislation.
Second.
Seconded by Representative Rhodes. As I said, this is again an issue that was taken care of in our comprehensive bail package. Unless anyone has anything to add, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Vice Chair Rhodes? Representative Pratt?
Yes.
Representative Sitek? Representative Janvrin?
Yes.
Representative Mannion?
Yes.
Representative Reed?
Yes.
Representative Stone?
Yes.
Representative Harry Gathright? Representative Bolden?
Yes.
Representative Vale?
Yes.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Representative Newman?
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell?
Yes.
Representative Selig?
Yes.
Representative Wheeler?
Yay.
Chairman Roy?
Chair votes yes.
17-0.
17-0, the motion carries. It is not recommended for future legislation. With that, I close the executive hearing on Senate Bill 321. With that, I open the executive session on Senate Bill 415. I recognize Representative Pratt for a motion.
Make a motion in favor of future legislation for Senate Bill 415.
I second. We've already discussed this one. I'm pretty sure where we all know will come down on it, so I'd ask the clerk to call the roll. Oh, excuse me, Representative.
I'd
Representative
like
Sitek.
to echo something I heard before, and that's that I think the concept is great, but like some others, I don't want to vote for a mandatory minimum, but I'll hold my nose and vote for this, but I would not vote for it if it were actually the bill.
Thank you. And I would add that probably neither would I. I think that it definitely needs work, but I do believe that we need to revisit the strictness and comprehensive nature of the subject matter.
Could you restate the motion, please?
The motion is to recommend for future legislation. With that, I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Vice Chair Rhodes? Representative Pratt?
Yes.
Representative Sitek? Representative Janvrin?
Yes.
Representative Mannion?
Yes.
Representative Reed?
Yes.
Representative Stone?
Yes.
Representative Harry Gathright?
No.
Representative Bolden?
No.
Representative Vale?
No.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Representative Newman?
No.
The clerk votes no. Representative Newell?
No.
Representative Selig?
No.
Representative Wheeler?
Nay.
Chairman Roy?
Chair votes yes.
It's 9-8.
9-8, motion fails. I'll entertain a new motion. Oh, excuse me, the motion passes. I did? Oh, okay. Well, I'll take that. Then motion carries. It is recommended for future legislation. With that, I close the executive session, and I open the executive session on, Representative Pratt need a report by the end of the week. I open the executive session on Senate Bill number 425. And relative to bail commission fees, I make a motion that it not be recommended for future legislation. Can I have a second? Seconded by Representative Stone. This is again an issue that we took up on our comprehensive bail package. This is now the law. So with that, anyone wish to add anything? Seeing none, I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Vice Chair Rhodes?
Yes.
Representative Pratt?
Yes.
Representative Sitek?
Yes.
Representative Janvrin?
Yes.
Representative Mannion?
Yes.
Representative Reed?
Yes.
Representative Stone?
Yes.
Representative Harry Gathright? Yes. Representative Bolden?
Yes.
Representative Vale?
Yes.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Representative Newman?
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell?
Yes.
Representative Selig?
Yes.
Representative Wheeler?
Yay.
Chairman Roy,
Chair votes yes.
17-0.
17-0, motion carries. It is not recommended for future legislation. With that, I close the executive session on Senate Bill 425, and I open the executive session on Senate Bill 464 relative to the prohibiting of non-consensual dissemination of synthetic sexual images, and I'm looking for a motion. Okay, Representative Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion to not recommend 464.
Seconded by Representative Murray. This is again one that we discussed that another bill we just passed. It was a House version of this bill, and Representative Muse was one of the sponsors. So I'd ask clerk to call the roll unless somebody has anything to add. Motion on the floor is not recommended for future legislation.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Sitek,
Yes.
Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Harry Gathright, Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Vale,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler,
Yay.
Chairman Roy,
Chair votes yes.
17-0.
17-0, motion carries. It is not recommended for future legislation. I hereby close the executive session on Senate Bill 464, and I open the executive session on Senate Bill 578 relative to criminal pretrial services and monitoring, and I make a motion of not recommend for future legislation. Can I have a second? Second by Representative Stone. Again, this is something that we addressed in our bail comprehensive package, that we directed that the commission, the Standing Commission on Criminal Justice, look into pretrial services and making it a statewide possibility. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, and ask the clerk to call the roll. The motion on the floor is not recommended for future legislation.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Sitek, Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Harry Gathright,
No.
Representative Bolden,
No.
Representative Vale,
No.
Representative Murphy,
No.
Representative Newman.
No.
The clerk votes no. Representative Newell,
No.
Representative Selig,
No.
Representative Wheeler,
Nay.
Chairman Roy,
Chair votes yes.
8-9.
Motion fails 8-9. I'll entertain another motion. Representative Newell,
I'd like to make a motion to recommend this for future legislation.
need a second?
Yes, second.
Seconded by Representative Gathright. Again, no further discussion needed, although I thought we had kind of an agreement that we already dealt with this, but okay. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll. Motion on the floor is to recommend for future legislation.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
No.
Representative Pratt,
No.
Representative Sitek, Representative Janvrin,
No.
Representative Mannion,
No.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Stone,
No.
Representative Harry Gathright,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Vale,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler,
Yay.
Chairman Roy,
Chair votes no.
9-8.
9-8, motion carries. The recommendation is to recommend future legislation. And Representative Newell, I need a report by the end of the week, please. Representative Gathright, yeah.
Can we go back to 415 because I didn't get that count the way it was.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. I think that it came out being tied, actually, and not passing. So I'm going to let the record reflect that that was a tie vote on that. And with that, there'll be no recommendation from the committee. So 8-8. Yeah,
Did one person not vote?
I think she maybe made the wrong vote or something.
made the
Yeah,
wrong vote.
yeah.
So it actually should be 9-8.
Yeah, I'm not going to revisit that. Yeah, it's 8-8 tie. That's, doesn't matter. It just means no recommendation.
Are
Anything
you
else?
sure about that?
Yeah, we are. We can't, just the numbers in the room tell you that.
Thank you for a fantastic biennium, Mr. Chairman. I think we worked tremendously together. I think we were the best committee in the legislature, and I watch a lot of them, and I really appreciate the work that you put into making this committee work bipartisanly and making us be able to get a lot of good work done from this committee.
I really appreciate that, and I agree
second
that
it.
the other committees do stink.
Question.
Yes,
Question of our illustrious and amazing chairman.
yes.
Do we
yes.
not need to vote more than once to eventually make no recommendation? Do we not have to
You know, if the
fail
vote
on
is
multiple
tied-
votes?
I don't think so. I think if the vote is tied, that means we couldn't agree.
I thought a tied vote meant that the motion failed. It doesn't mean no recommendation unless a different motion also fails.
I don't know. Huh. Yeah, there's only one report. There's no minority report on any of these, so I don't think that it would matter. What? Yeah, that's what we.
It's only a tie.
It was a
if we
tie in
don't
that she.
count
It
her
was a
vote.
tie in that she voted. She voted wrong.
It
No.
was a tie.
It's not.
If her voted was a tie, what she's saying
No.
is that she voted wrong, which would have switched it.
Yeah,
It would have
yeah.
become 9-8.
That's what I said.
Okay, so it would be 9-8. Okay, so you have to vote on the other motion.
Yeah, we do.
Why are you here?
I'll gladly make the motion.
You're like exactly this. Reason.
Okay, here. Let me fix this. I opened the executive. I reopened the executive. Can I even do that? I reopened the executive session by my magical power on Senate Bill. Which one was it?
415.
415, and I recognized Representative Murphy to make a motion. Fix it.
I make a motion to not recommend Senate Bill 415 relative to penalty for certain fentanyl-related offenses for a further legislation.
Okay.
Seconded.
Seconded by Representative Newell. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll. The motion on the floor. Oh, wait a minute.
Don't we have to undo the other?
No, because it failed.
I think we would have to, now we have
It
to
was
have
a
a
tie.
motion to
I tied it.
reconsider.
Question.
What?
Can the clerk repeat what the vote result was the first time we voted on this?
The vote was 9-8-9 to recommend.
But it was not what you wanted it to be.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The vote was 9-8 not to recommend, and Representative Murphy voted on the prevailing side in
Wait
error.
a minute. If it's not to recommend, that's what you want.
I mean, to recommend.
I'm leaving. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, so it
No, we're
was
good.
9-8, and we have that
Yeah. She just is going to correct your vote
9
now.
in favor of not 9 in favor of recommending, and 8 against recommending, and there are 17 people in this room, so everyone voted.
Yeah.
So I think the only way that if someone messed up their vote, the only way we could change that is if someone makes a motion to reconsider.
Well, no, because think about it. She voted one way, right?
was 9-8.
And that actually came out to be tied, didn't it?
9-8 isn't
9 to
tied.
8.
That's right. Oh my God, the work we're doing on a bill that can't go anywhere.
Y'all, like, I am the clerk and Bradley is here. Let us talk about it.
All right.
Motion to reconsider? Is that what we need to do?
So if she voted the wrong way, then it would fail. So the recommendation of recommending future legislation that failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't need to revote on that.
Okay.
So it was 8-9.
Yeah.
Right. You just need to vote on not recommend.
Okay, we don't need to reconsider or any of that stuff.
It failed. So.
So we're not recommending.
Right. If it failed, you don't need to reconsider. or anything.
Okay, thank you. I would ask the clerk to quickly call the roll on the motion of not recommend for future legislation.
We are voting on the motion to recommend. Or to,
Yeah, the motion is
Or
from
to not
Representative
recommend.
Murphy to recommend for future legislation.
not to recommend. Okay,
thought
I'm
she-
going to walk it through.
Mr. Chair, we need a point of order.
I thought she wanted.
The first,
future legislation.
One
first
person
vote-
at a time.
The clerk.
the first motion was to recommend. That motion prevailed by 9-8, but Representative Murphy voted on the prevailing side in error. We do not need to reconsider that vote. We just need to vote on a different motion, which Representative Murphy made to not recommend. Yes.
To be on the safe side, why don't you vote to reconsider?
Okay.
I don't like it. Then just
Representative Murphy, will you withdraw your motion, please? Because we have to do another in
Motion withdrawn.
Thank you. So I will consider a new motion. I'll make the motion. I move we reconsider the vote on, what was this, Senate Bill 415. And it was seconded by Representative Gathright. Please call the roll. The motion is to reconsider.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
No.
Representative Sitek, Representative Jandrin, Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Stone,
No.
Representative Harry Gathright,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Vale,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler,
Yay.
Chairman Roy,
Chair votes yes.
14-3.
Okay, now I'll entertain a new motion. And
That's, Nancy, you're up again.
Representative Murphy.
Okay, thank you. I move that we not recommend for future legislation Senate Bill 415 FN.
Motion was seconded by Representative Pierre Gathright. And ask the clerk to call the roll. The motion on the floor is to not recommend for future legislation.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
No.
Representative Pratt,
No.
Representative Sitek, Representative Jandrin,
No.
Representative Mannion,
No.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Stone,
No.
Representative Harry Gathright, Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Vale,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Yes, with the side of COVID.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler,
Yay.
Chairman Roy.
Chair votes no.
9-8, the motion prevails.
Motion carries 9-8. It is not recommended for future legislation. Representative Murphy, if you could get me a blurb by the end of the week. With that, I close the executive session again on Senate Bill 415. And with that is it. We are in recess.
Where's the cake? The cake was a lie.
I was promised cake.